Congratulations! You made it all the way to this module, which will complete the teachings on boundaries. I hope you have made great use of all the examples and stories I interspersed in between the purely theoretical information, and that you let those inspire you to make great boundary changes. I also hope you have worked with the forms I provided for you to go deeper into the material, because there is true magic in pen on paper. But before going into boundaries, as usual, I will cover a lifestyle topic. Today it's about being highly sensitive in work and at work. So remember this, highly sensitive is as highly sensitive does, paraphrase from Forrest Gump's famous saying, stupid is as stupid does. The O, if you recall, stands for overstimulation and overwhelm, and is a highly sensitive person's biggest challenge. I have spent quite a lot of time in the modules recommending many ways on how to deal with this. Regarding the D, E, and S, Dr. Elaine Aron said that the world needs people who notice things, and this is our S for sensitivity to subtle. We notice things. Think deeply, which is our D, depth of processing, and make decisions with empathy and compassion, which is our E, that stands for emotional reactivity and empathy. The D, E, and S are different aspects of the gift of high sensitivity, and the ones that are the source for our archetypal roles in society as royal advisor, priest or priestess, counselor, and healer. A lot of what we give of ourselves, we give through our chosen profession, our work, our careers. I do believe we highly sensitive people are drawn to the healing arts in some way or another, or some kind of job that will help us make a positive difference in the world somehow. Because remember, we see things, we think deeply about the things we see, and we care deeply. It's an ingrained part of us. But really, highly sensitive people are to be found in any area of work, in any profession. This list you see here is from the book Thrive, The Highly Sensitive Person and Career by Tracy M. Cooper, PhD. In this part, I'll be sharing with you some of the more interesting information I read in this book, which is based on 2 surveys of highly sensitive people. I'm sure there'll be something that will apply to you in your life. But for now, take a moment to read through the list. Take a look at the 4 top categories. Education and training is a top category, followed by arts and communication, human services, and health sciences. With everything you know about highly sensitive people, does this surprise you? On the other hand, the 2 that are called agriculture, food and natural resources, the 4th from the bottom, and hospitality and tourism, which is the 3rd from the bottom, those 2 surprised me. I would have thought highly sensitive people much more likely to be working with nature, being so deeply aware how important nature is to all life, and how it often allows time in peaceful surroundings. And I would also have thought more highly sensitive people would have been in the hospitality and tourism business. But I don't really know why that would be, except maybe because it's a people-focused service. Although I can easily imagine it to be too much pressure with always having to deal with strangers, considering 2 out of 3 highly sensitive people are introverts. It used to be that people would have one career throughout their lifetime, but that is not the case in this day and age. Many people have 3 or more different careers throughout their life, myself being an example of that. Career hopping, I believe it's called. So why do we career hop so much? A lot of time I believe it's the work environment itself. Too noisy, too negative. Or, as is often the case in today's modern Western world, it's all about action, now, now, now. And highly sensitive people are thinkers before they are doers, a character trait that is often way too undervalued. And referring back to an earlier module, I think we as highly sensitive people know we have a calling, a purpose in life. And if you don't know what that is and just take a job without knowing if it aligns with your purpose, well, I think that makes work frustrating and depressing in no time at all. When there is this little voice nagging, telling you that this is not where you're supposed to be. So you quit and get another job and another career. However, it seems that one of highly sensitive people's biggest concerns when it comes to work is boredom or the fear of being bored. And I can totally relate that to my own life. But really, why is boredom such a big issue? Well, taking into consideration that highly sensitive people feel everything deeper, they also feel boredom deeper, meaning that when they are bored, they are really bored. It doesn't help that boredom often brings with it a sense of powerlessness to change one's situations, whether at work or elsewhere, and powerlessness leads to anxiety. And who wants that? I have learned the hard way that I need to watch out for myself being bored. When I in the past have ignored my boredom, I have frequently, too frequently by far, subconsciously created a crisis in my life in order to bring an end to my boredom. These days, as much as I want to have a peaceful life, boredom is a real killer of joy for me. I like a challenge. I like learning new things. I like growing and stretching myself. And apparently, that is not just me, but something that is true for most highly sensitive people. I'd love to hear if that's true for you as well. The cure for boredom, the cure for the boredom that we fear so much, is being in the zone. One of Dr. Cooper's findings is that highly sensitive people seem to seek out the experience of flow, also known as being in the zone. When you're in the zone, there's zero experience of boredom. I realized for myself many years ago that I love being in the zone, and I've always assumed it to be true for most people I know, but apparently it's more true for highly sensitive people. As I'm writing this and considering Dr. Cooper's research results that highly sensitive people seek out the zone, I can absolutely see how I have created my work life so that I can be in the zone as much as possible. So what is the zone? According to Wikipedia, this guy, Mihaly, is something very unpronounceable, who first researched this and was the first to call it the flow. According to him, flow is completely focused motivation. It is a single-minded immersion and represents perhaps the ultimate experience in harnessing the emotions in the service of performing and learning. In flow, the emotions are not just contained and channeled, but positive, energized, and aligned with the task at hand. The hallmark of flow is a feeling of spontaneous joy, even rapture, while performing a task, although flow is also described as a deep focus on nothing but the activity, not even oneself or one emotions. So he identified these following different factors that must all be present in order for someone to be in the zone. Intense and focused concentration on the present moment. 2. Merging of action and awareness, meaning that all your awareness is what you're actually doing. 3. A loss of reflective self-consciousness, meaning you're so focused on what you're doing that you forget about yourself. 4. A sense of personal control or agency over the situation or activity, meaning you feel powerful and in control of what you're doing. 5. A distortion of temporal experience. One's subjective experience of time is altered, meaning you forget all about time. You don't pay any attention to it. And 6, experience of the activity as intrinsically rewarding, meaning doing what you're doing is what gives you the feelings of fulfillment and satisfactions and contentment, and even a eureka moment when you complete it. So only when all these things happen at the same time will you be in the zone. So Kendra Cherry adds a few other factors that must be present, which you see on the bottom. They are named like 7. You need to get immediate feedback so that you can see that what you're working on is moving you towards the result that you want to see happening. Number 8, feeling that you have the potential to succeed, And knowing that you can succeed, which keeps you enthused about what you're doing and excited, and all that increases motivation to keep on doing. And number 9, feeling so engrossed in the experience that other needs become negligible, meaning you forget about hunger, thirst, need to go to the toilet, you completely stop noticing your body. So here's a quote describing it. When one is in the flow state, they are completely engrossed with the one task at hand and, without making the conscious decision to do so, lose awareness of all other things, time, people, distractions, and even basic bodily needs. This occurs because all of the attention of the person in the flow state is on the task at hand. There is no more attention to be allocated. Definitely all of these are true for me, and I'm a great fan of single tasking, doing only one thing at a time and doing it deeply. As single tasking allows people to enter into the zone in a way that multitasking or popping between tasks all the times can never do for you. So recently, at our first highly sensitive gathering in Iceland, we sent the question around the circle. What do you like most about being highly sensitive? Perhaps not surprisingly, most answered that what they enjoyed the most was the sensitivity to subtleties. No doubt about it, this is the part I really truly enjoy as well. But what I appreciate the most about being highly sensitive is the D of the DOES, the depths of processing. I have come to deeply trust what I call the back of my mind. I know that I can trust myself to come up with the perfect way, or at least an excellent way of doing anything, of solving anything, if I leave it to my deep processing. Things arrive in my conscious awareness fully formed with both the big picture and a large amount of the details already in place. Like the goddess Athena springing fully formed out of Zeus's head, out of his forehead. And I can't even begin to tell you how much I like the effortlessness of it and how much it benefits me in my work. It is an amazing gift that I am so appreciative of having been given. So another one of the gifts of being highly sensitive is that we are innately creative. And by creative, I do not mean artistic necessarily, but creative as in creating something new out of nothing. Or as Dr. Cooper says it, we are creating a universe of meaning, personally defined. I love this last definition because it ties directly in with our S&D, our attention to the subtleties in our environment and our deep processing propensity. I believe that what makes so many highly sensitive people seek the zone is that it allows us to create meaning out of everything we have noticed and processed in our own and in personal way. It certainly is true for me. So try it out for yourself and see what happens if you give yourself the time for deep processing. We are all so eager to know right now, but some knowledge takes longer time to percolate to the surface of your mind. Highly sensitive people take longer time to make decisions, but remember, their decisions are typically better for it. Trust that about yourself. Try it out. You might just surprise yourself. So one thing that many people respect us for is that we are very conscientious when we take on a task. If you took the highly sensitive person's self-test, you might remember that this was one of the questions of the test. I would even go so far as to say that many of us value and try to live by what some people would consider old-fashioned values, such as being honest, reliable, accountable, responsible, trustworthy, honorable, acting with respect and integrity and compassion. My very strong belief is that the more we ourselves live according to those values, the more we will respect ourselves, the more we will like ourselves, and the more confidence we will have. These old-fashioned values are very important to us, but unfortunately not to everyone else. Being who we are with our sensitivity to the subtle, our empathy and deep processing, I don't think we can thrive in a place where those character traits are not valued. It would slowly kill our spirits and souls. And maybe those values that we hold dear is one of the big reasons highly sensitive people excel at working with small teams, whether as a member or as a leader. We have empathy and know what's going on with other people. We know deeply who they are and what makes them tick. Having this deep understanding of your team members can be of tremendous value and benefit in terms of your team working smoothly together. And if you think about it, it's kind of self-evident that we highly sensitive people make great leaders if we want to go in that direction. We notice things, see all the details, both with people and also the details of the work itself. And we can see the big picture, again, both with people and the work itself. And then we process what we notice deeply, with people and with work. Dr. Cooper in his book shares a story of a highly sensitive person who had a manager with no concept of which people were good at what, and just randomly assigned tasks to his team members. Can you imagine how much better it would be for everyone if that manager had insight into his people? How much more could be accomplished with much better quality of results? If you add in our empathy, which often makes us do things gently, and our innate creativity and those innate old-fashioned values, well, to me it sounds like a great leader, right? But of course, we would need to speak our truth and stop holding ourselves back. And boundaries are just the thing to help us with that. So, onwards to boundaries. First, a few bits and pieces that didn't really fit anywhere else in earlier modules, so they get to be part of this last module of boundaries. And also a few repeats of important points regarding boundaries. And none of it in any particular order whatsoever. So first, a little recap of our 3 kinds of boundaries. Outside-in boundaries is about stopping other people's inappropriate behavior towards you. Inside-out boundaries have to do with stopping your own inappropriate behavior towards other people. And inside-in boundaries is about stopping your own inappropriate thoughts and behaviors towards yourself. So remember these, and they can be very helpful in helping you figure out which exact boundaries it is that you are missing in any given situation. So one very important thing you need to know is how to recognize your missing boundaries. Not all of the instances will be crystal clear, like rape having to do with missing sexual boundaries in both victim, who is missing outside-in boundaries, and the offender, which is missing inside-out boundaries. Or domestic abuse situation, where it's a missing physical boundary for both the victim, again outside-in boundary, and the offender, again the inside-out boundary. There are many, many obvious missing boundaries if you look around and pay attention, but I would like to mention just one that is big media news exactly now today as I'm writing this. The Panama Papers have just been released, and the Icelandic Prime Minister displayed a big missing inside-out boundary in not being upfront about his conflict of interest regarding creditors, which in this case includes his wife's offshore company, and the Icelandic banks where he should act on behalf of the nation and Icelandic people when he was at the negotiating table. Basically, he was sitting on both sides of the table and had not informed anyone about his conflict of interest. Remember, inside-out boundaries have to do with your behavior excuse me, toward others. He lost the nation's trust when it was brought to light, even though he hasn't done anything illegal. And because of this, he was forced to step down from office. And all this just happened over the last 2 days. But on a more personal, everyday level, these are some of the signs that you have not noticed and or not honored your boundaries. You may feel frustration, resentment, overwhelm, anger, sadness, anxiety. You may be beating yourself up. You might be feeling miserable, depressed, feeling rejected, having difficulty sleeping, feeling nauseous, powerless, helpless, shame, guilt, doubt, or you might just be feeling a general sense of unease. You might find yourself making excuses for other people's behavior, and you might also find that your decisions are being disregarded by other people. So all of these and others that I couldn't quite think of as I was writing this can be signs of not honoring your boundaries. What is clear from this list is that most all of these indicators of dishonored boundaries is a feeling that you experience inside yourself. So pay attention to your feelings. First, check if it is someone else's feelings you might be feeling. Find out why you have this feeling. And once you have that clarity, and after your time out for deep processing, go ahead and set whatever boundaries you need to set. I strongly believe we are born with a perfect boundary system on all levels, but are then trained out of paying any attention to it. Think about it. Babies don't have problems saying no. They will immediately let you know when something is not right for them. Likewise, most toddlers are very keen on owning the right to boundaries. And when we insist that they do what we want them to do, we call it a temper tantrum when they say no and judge it as wrong behavior, when it's really just the child saying, something is not right for me. So our boundary system doesn't actually disappear. We're just trained out of paying attention to it. So when I've been talking about having no boundaries or boundaries with holes, well, it's more accurate to say that we either completely ignore our boundaries or we only ignore them in some parts of our lives. We ignore our boundaries deliberately, but also unconsciously, because our training on it not being okay for us to own and honor our boundaries goes so deep in us and started so early on that it has long since become unconscious and automatic. But it is still a deliberate choice, even though we'd long forgotten it was a choice we made. And a choice we made again and again and again until now, when it's time for you to make a different choice. So in this way, you're doing nothing but reclaiming your forgotten boundaries, and in that reclaiming, becoming more truly and deeply yourself as you were born to be. Chronic anxiety is something I often hear people suffering from. When you think about boundaries as your means to protecting yourself, doesn't it make sense that if you have boundary issues, then you will feel anxiety too? And it's not only about being free to say no, although that can create quite a lot of anxiety on its own. Being anxious about what people will bring to you, what they will expect of you, how they might abuse you, and you not being free to say no to any of it, big cause for anxiety, I'd say. The other one is that of not being able to keep other people's stuff outside yourself. When you know you're open to taking on other people's stuff, even while you don't know it consciously, you know you'll be invaded by foreign thought forms, feelings, and energies. And it will feel like a violation, even though you might not be consciously aware of it. And any violation is very unpleasant. And lastly, knowing that you will take everything that someone does assess personally, including especially criticism, well, yikes, anxiety. Everything that happens in the world outside of you is just a reflection of what's going on inside of you. The world holds up to you a perfect mirror of who you are. So when you have missing or damaged boundaries, the world will send you someone that matches those holes. In other words, a boundary offender to your boundary victimhood. So if have been around abusive people in the past, or maybe you still have them in your life, as you start reclaiming your boundaries, you should see those abusive people slowly leaving your life. And if they are not leaving because circumstances force you to be in others' lives, they will change their behavior towards you. Everyone in your life is a reflection of who you are. And when you change who you are by getting boundaries, you'll have something else reflected back to you. Something new and something better. Remember, a true boundary changes who you are. By now, I'm hopeful that you have started setting boundaries left and right. But I also know that you most likely have some people in your life that are much harder to set boundaries with than others. It is important that you build your boundary muscle slowly and steadily. Start with the little no's, the baby no's, and then as you gain confidence in setting those baby boundaries, you can progress to increasingly bigger no's and bigger boundaries, so that by the time you're ready to deal with your biggest boundary offenders or abusers, you'll be sure of yourself and confident that setting those boundaries are right. Experience will have given you the confidence in the rightness of your boundaries. And if you've taken time to build a strong boundary muscle, then that big boundary offender doesn't stand a chance. And remember to celebrate your progress every single step of the way. Every boundary you set is equally important, no matter how small, no matter how big. But when you get to that very biggest, baddest boundary offender, celebrate big, because it takes a lot of courage for you to go up against people like that. And you most definitely deserve a celebration for doing this hard and often scary work. So celebrate. Have you ever noticed sort of a background feeling? I think it's the best way I can describe it. That you need a permission before you can set your boundaries. Guess what? It's probably true that you're waiting for someone's permission before you can go ahead and say all the no's you want. You're waiting for permission from the same people that told